Hello, beautiful people. So today I felt called to share a little bit about, what's inspired me to start this channel. And a little bit about why I want to create these videos and share this journey more publicly, I guess. The biggest sort of inspiration for me is that I really hope that I can just bring some seeds of hope and possibility. And to inspire humans to understand that healing is not only possible, but it's actually an incredible journey, and one that I have found to be deeply transformational in my life. And part of what I really want is to bring this inspiration for change and this hope for a brighter future for humanity. Even if it's just one person, each seed that is planted, I believe, has the potential to not only grow into a beautiful, abundant tree or plant, but also create its own seeds that can then grow further. So this is really just about planting seeds of hope and possibility. What's brought me to this point in my journey, ever since I was 15 years old, I've had to face a lot of struggles, and life threw a lot of challenging situations my way. In a lot of ways, my whole adult journey has been learning how to heal, and especially learning how to heal trauma. For a long time, I didn't feel safe to be in my body, just to be present. There was a lot of trauma that was stored in my body, and it didn't feel comfortable to feel that. And I just felt so disconnected from myself, and even just from life, from the world. It took a lot of courage to face and to heal these traumas. So I don't really want to go into the details of, the suffering and the hardship, but just to give you a little bit of a picture of some of the things that I had to face. When I was 15, I was in a seriously abusive relationship on all levels. It was physical, mental, emotional, and more. And I had no support throughout that time. I had no friends, so I didn't really talk to anyone, and so I was all alone in that situation, and it went on for 6 months. And then when I was 16, I became pregnant with my first child, and so I became a mother at 17. And I was in a relationship with his dad, and we had another child. We were together for 7 years, but that relationship wasn't healthy for any of us. So when my daughter was 4 and my son was 8, I left their dad and started the journey of solo parenting. And for the rest of their upbringings, I raised them on my own. And I also had some near-death experiences, and I also had a few concussions to heal from, and multiple other lessons I had to heal and face. But what became clear to me on that journey is that my healing journey became my spiritual journey. And there was something so beautiful in that. It became a journey of how to come back home to myself. And it did take a lot of work, and it was not always easy. And there were moments where, things felt very fragile. And there were also moments where I had to find a way to keep going, even when I didn't know how to. So it's been a bit of a journey, but at the same time, the insights and the realizations and the growth that I experienced through this journey has been incredible beyond measure. And even though I would never wish any of those things that happened to me on anyone else, I would never ever change my past, because I know that it's because of my past that I am who I am today, and that I've become the person that I am in this moment. And I'm so grateful for that, even though it hasn't been always that easy. So it was through that journey that I began learning how to come back to myself. And I learned different tools and practices and just, I guess, ways of being that slowly helped me to feel safe and connected and to start feeling whole again. So not long after the abusive relationship, I came across the Qigong, Yuan Gong system, and Ren Shu life development, life cultivation, and that was huge on my journey. I was so passionate about learning, about healing, about the laws of life and the laws of Qi, and especially when he started talking about the patterns of consciousness. So there's patterns that are kind of unconsciously running our lives most of the time on autopilot. And I started really learning as much as I could about these patterns. And what I started to realize is that every time that something comes up in my life where I'm not feeling calm, relaxed, natural, grounded, like say I've been triggered by something someone said, if you follow it back to when it first started, it's like you get to the root of the problems that we face in our lives. And I guess I sort of realized that all of the reactions I'm having in the moment are really connected to these patterns from the past, and that I needed to go inside myself and spend time with the younger part of myself who developed these patterns and survival strategies in the first place, and to have compassion for that younger version of myself, because all these patterns are developed usually for survival, and that's sort of the most intelligent thing that we could do in that moment at the age that we were with the tools that we had. And I guess having curiosity about when the patterns were first developed and why they exist, and also the harm that they bring to our lives in a lot of ways, and then finding other ways of being that were more healthy. So I went on this big, deep journey of transforming patterns, and also learning a lot about how to regulate the nervous system and how to deepen my state of being relaxed and calm and natural, and unifying my body with my chi or energy, and my mind or consciousness and heart and true self, and unifying all of those parts of myself. And then I also came across Hakomi, which was quite pivotal also in my healing journey, which Hakomi is like an assisted self-study where we use like a mindfulness based somatic psychotherapy. The mindfulness in Hakomi isn't like clearing your mind and having no thoughts. It's more about bringing up a part of ourselves that can observe, that can really observe what happens as we sort of dive into the somatics, into the body, and make space for the things that we've stored in there, the sensations that are in our body, and track them back also to this younger part of ourselves that developed these patterns and strategies and core beliefs. And really a big part of Hakomi is also this having a loving presence, and again having that compassion for the younger part of ourselves, and having a curiosity about all these core beliefs and patterns and how they were formed and why they're there, and just giving them a little bit of space. And through this work I came to realize that the more that we give space to these patterns, to just allow them to have a bit of a say and to bring our presence to them, they sort of lose their power. They become less powerful, and they don't have so much of a like grip on us anymore. And eventually they we replace them with other patterns, really. So it's been quite a journey of healing, but what I've gained through all of that is so much clarity, and I find that now life looks so much different, and it's such an incredible journey to walk on this path, and the insights, the realizations, the wisdom that comes from this journey is just so unbelievably incredible. And I guess the thing that I find really interesting is when I first began the journey, I was on a mission to be healed. I wanted to know what it felt like to feel healed. And now I'm starting to realize that there is no end to that journey, and initially when I first sort of realized that, I thought, oh no, I wanted it to end. But now I actually feel so much excitement in that. It means because I've already came to such an amazing place on my healing journey, it means that there's even more. There's more clarity, more depth, more compassion and groundedness. I don't know, there's possibility for even more healing, which now excites me. I feel like it's such an interesting thing for us to do, to keep working on our growth, our internal growth. And at the end of the day, it's kind of the only thing that that stays with us. We can work really hard and get all these external material possessions and things, but none of that really means anything. Like, what really means anything in life is the growth that we do internally, and then our external world shifts and changes, and it's just such an exciting thing to be part of. So I guess part of the reason that I'm here, starting this channel and sharing these messages, is because I know how lonely this journey can be. And often it feels like you're all alone, especially with all this pain and struggle and suffering. And I also know how powerful it is when even just one small seed of hope is planted, and I guess my healing journey I had to do mostly on my own, because I found it really hard to find trauma-informed therapists who could hold space for the sort of level of trauma I had, let's say. And if I could find a therapist that had that ability, they were usually out of my price range. As a solo mum, I didn't have extra money to spend on my healing. So I really did have to learn how to heal on my own. But again, I wouldn't change that. I wouldn't change it, because the strength that I've gained from that has been incredible. And I've also, now my children are young adults, and we had such an incredible time growing together, and they've just become the most incredibly inspiring and compassionate and beautiful humans. And I really feel so blessed with the life that I've created from this work that I've been doing on healing. Sorry about that, I got interrupted. And that's just life, isn't it? There's always distractions and interruptions, and we've just got to roll with it. So, where was I? About what I'm sharing on this channel. I definitely am not claiming to have all the answers. In fact, far from it. I think that the more that I've learned, the more knowledge I've gained in my life, the more I realize that I don't know anything. And there's, so much that I can still learn and realize, really. So in a way, this really excites me, because it means, wow, I can just keep growing and evolving and learning, and I don't have to pretend that I know it all. In fact, I know that I don't. So I don't have all the answers, but what I do have is lived experience. I have lived through a lot of suffering and a long journey of healing. And I guess what I want to do is to share what's helped me, and maybe there's some hope there that it might support someone else. And I guess what I've learned on this journey as well is everybody's healing journey looks so different, and there's not one recipe or one thing that can help everyone. We all have our own unique pathway. And I guess when I help people on their healing journeys, it's not about giving the answers or solutions or advice at all. It's about guiding and supporting them into their own bodies, because everyone has the wisdom within themselves for what they need for healing. And it's just about quietening down the mind enough and making space to be able to go into the heart and go into the body and be quiet enough and still enough to allow the answers to come to us. So I'm not here to shout from the rooftops that I have the answers. I'm really here to guide and support people to find their own wisdom within. So I think that's part of what I want to share, more of meditations that can guide people to their own inner wisdom, and also just to help support, regulate the nervous system and come into a place of calm and reconnecting to ourselves, to our hearts, to that inner wisdom. And the more that we can reconnect to ourselves, the more we can then connect with the external world, with other humans, with nature, with everything that's around us, from a much more grounded and centered place. So yeah, I guess what you can expect on this channel will be some meditations and some I guess just some ways to regulate the nervous system. I will also be sharing reflections and like insights that have come to me that I feel called to share, and practices, maybe small practices that can really help people on their journeys. And I guess ultimately it's just about ways to come back to a connection with yourself. So if you're on your own journey in any way, you're really welcome here. And I hope that you enjoy these sharings. And I hope that these seeds can, find their way around the world and grow in abundance, and for people to really find a way to feel whole again. And I guess if you are interested in reading about my healing journey, I did write an article about it, about all the sort of details of what I went through and also the lessons that I learned. So I will put the link down in the description box in case anyone is interested to read more. So I hope that this finds you well, and I wish you lots of love and peace, and also wishing you a wonderful day or night.